On my 30th birthday, I told my family we needed to scale back. I couldn't keep footing the bill for everything. Dad smirked and said, "Then start with your brother's massive debt." I said no. When I returned home, my belongings were on the porch. Locks changed. "Reflect on your actions," they said. I didn't cause a fuss. I stayed silent. Just set up a timed message. The next day, everything shifted. "Happy birthday, Josh," my mom chirped, her tone bright but forced, as if she hadn't just guilted me an hour earlier for refusing to cover Kyle's latest car payment. I sat at the edge of the kitchen table, a slice of supermarket cake in front of me, with wax dripping from a tilted 30. My dad lounged across from me, one arm slung lazily over the chair, the other cradling a coffee mug. My brother Kyle, 28, jobless, and seemingly allergic to accountability, was glued to his phone, tapping away. His shiny new smartphone, naturally, the one I'd funded. "So," I began, clearing my throat. My pulse raced, but I kept my voice steady. "We need to address finances." Dad snorted. Mom blinked. Kyle didn't even look up. "I can't keep bankrolling everything," I said. "I'm trying to carve out a life for myself. I've been paying for the house, utilities, food. I cleared Kyle's DUI fine last spring. I need to pull back." Kyle glanced up then. "You're acting like it's a favor." I stared at him. "It is," he scoffed. "Wow, really?" Dad leaned in, eyes sharp. "Then start with your brother's six-figure debt. That's the real burden, isn't it?" Mom shot him a look, like she wished he'd kept quiet. Kyle went rigid. "I'm not covering that," I said softly. "That's not on me." The air turned heavy. No one stirred. Dad eased back, a sneer flickering across his face. "Well, guess we know your priorities." When I got home from work the next evening, my stuff, clothes, books, tools, the laptop I used for side gigs, was piled neatly on the porch. The locks were new. A note was taped to the door. "Reflect on your actions." That's all it read. I stared at the handwriting. My mom's. Clean, deliberate, unmistakable. I didn't pound on the door. I didn't shout. I didn't break down. I took a deep breath, grabbed my bags, and walked off. Then I scheduled the message. The next morning, everything changed. To grasp how we ended up here, a birthday eviction and a note that stung like a betrayal, you'd need to rewind a decade. I was 20 when Kyle wrecked his first car. Drunk, naturally. Mom sobbed. Dad roared. And I, the dependable eldest son with a solid job and a clean slate, paid the towing fee and lent him $3,000 for repairs. He never repaid it. It was meant to be a one-off, but somehow it became routine. When Kyle flunked out of college, they blamed me for not tutoring him. When he got fired from 3 jobs in a year, I was told some people just have it harder. When he overdrew his account, Mom would call, her voice soft but heavy with guilt. "Josh, honey, he's your brother. Can you cover it just this once?" And I always did. I paid his rent when he got evicted. I covered his car insurance, a car he used for joyrides while I walked to my job. I bought groceries, paid our parents' property taxes when they fell behind, and still scraped together enough for evening classes to earn my electrician's license. All while Kyle lounged in the basement tinkering with beats and contributing nothing. The worst part? He didn't even fake gratitude. He acted like it was his right. "Josh is killing it," he'd say, waving a hand like I was an endless cash machine. That's what big brothers do. My parents bought into it. I could have left, should have. But whenever I mentioned moving out, Mom's eyes would well up, and she'd say, "This house only feels whole with you here." Dad would scoff, "Don't be so theatrical," and point out I only covered most of the bills, as if paying for everything but the cable wasn't enough. And Kyle? He'd grin and say, "Why leave when you've got it so easy?" Yeah, I had it easy, working 60-hour weeks, barely seeing sunlight. While my brother bought new sneakers with cash he borrowed from me. I skipped meals to save while Dad used my earnings to repair the furnace, then told me I should be thankful I didn't have a landlord. It all came to a head 2 months before my birthday. I just finished a 14-hour shift when I found Kyle hosting a party. My custom-built PC, the one I'd pieced together over years, was hooked up to his speakers in the living room. His buddies were sprawled on the couch. Empty cans littered the floor. My keyboard was tacky with spilled drinks. I didn't snap. I just unplugged it all and hauled it back to my room. The next morning, Mom laid into me. "You humiliated him," she said, her tone cutting. "His friends saw you acting like a lunatic." "They were using my stuff," I said. "This isn't just your house," she shot back. "Everything here is shared." That word, shared, hit like a punch. Shared, like the mortgage I covered. The food I bought, the power bill that came straight from my account. That night, I reviewed my finances. I was so close. A few more months of saving and I could escape. For good. Then came Kyle's genius venture. Crypto trading. He sank $25,000 of his student loans he had no plan to repay, into it and lost it all in weeks. He blamed the platform, the market, his pals. Then he came to me. "You could loan me $10K, he said, like he was asking for bus fare. "Just to get me started again." I laughed, and for the first time in years, I said no. That's when things changed. I wasn't dependable anymore. I was selfish, ungrateful, arrogant. "Think you're above us now?" Dad asked one evening after dinner. "Just because you've got a few bucks saved?" "I'm not above anyone," I said. "I'm just done." The next day, Kyle posted on X. He didn't think I'd see it. It read, "Some people only give when they can control you. Cut them off, and their true colors show." It got over 300 likes. I stayed quiet. Then came my birthday, and foolishly, I thought maybe, just maybe, we could keep things civil. A simple dinner, a small cake, no conflict. Instead, I got an attack. Dad's gaze locked on me, daring me to mention money. Kyle joking about how I should unlock my savings, which don't exist. Mom smiling too hard, like she could smother the tension with fake warmth. And when I finally said it, "I can't keep funding everything," the floodgates opened. "Then start with your brother's six-figure debt," Dad said. Not joking, not testing, expecting. And when I said no, they didn't argue. They just threw me out, like trash. But they overlooked one thing. They forgot who taught me to stay calm, to wait, to never lash out. Because this time, I had a strategy. I didn't answer their note, didn't knock, didn't text, didn't cry. I grabbed my bags, crammed what I could into my beat-up Honda, and drove to the cheapest motel I could find. One of those rundown places where the air reeks of stale smoke and the vending machine swallows your coins. I sat on the lumpy bed, the note still clutched in my hand. "Reflect on your actions." I did. I thought deeply. And then, I scheduled the message. See, over the years, I'd learned a few truths. One was that every family has its own story, its own myth they cling to. Ours was this: Josh is the reliable one. Josh always steps up. Josh never fails. And because he never fails, we can do whatever we please. They didn't know I'd been keeping records for 2 years. Every PayPal transfer, every receipt, every withdrawal, every time I bailed someone out, I saved the proof, every backhanded text, every guilt trip, every time they said, "You're overreacting," when I set boundaries, logged, saved, time-stamped. And then there was the letter I'd written, months earlier, before my birthday. Back when I first thought, what if I walked away? It wasn't a farewell. It was a reckoning of everything. How I paid off their second mortgage in secret because the bank called me, not them. How I learned Kyle had used my identity to apply for a $15,000 loan. Denied, thankfully, but the inquiry still hit my credit. How my parents knew and begged me not to report him. "Family stays loyal," they said. I stayed loyal until I didn't. That morning, after they locked me out of the home I'd paid for, I hit send. I didn't just send it to them. I sent it to our whole family. My godmother in Miami, Uncle Tim in Boston, Mom's cousins, Dad's brothers, their book club, everyone. With the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, texts, voice memos, all neatly compiled. I even included a spreadsheet labeled, "What Josh Really Covered." It spread like wildfire through our family in under an hour. By noon, my phone was blowing up. 26 missed calls from Mom, 8 from Dad. Kyle didn't call. He sent one text. "You didn't need to do that. That was harsh." I didn't respond. At 12:37 p.m., my Aunt Lisa, who I hadn't spoken to in years, messaged me. "Well done. I always knew they were draining you. Proud of you, kid." Then came the consequences. Apparently, my parents' status in their cozy suburban circle mattered more than they let on. Their image as the perfect, tight-knit, upright family crumbled. People started asking questions. Why was Josh bankrolling them while Kyle jetted off on trips? Why did the note on the door sound like a soap opera? Why did Kyle have new gadgets, shoes, and ink while jobless? Why did Josh live in the basement like a renter when he paid for it all? Dad tried to deflect. "We were giving him stability," he told a cousin. "It was all planned." Bad move. I'd included the audio from the night they kicked me out. I'd recorded it on my phone, tucked into my coat pocket before dinner. The clip was clear as day. "Dad, then start with your brother's debt." Me, I'm not paying that. Dad. Then leave. Mom. Reflect on your actions. They couldn't twist that. The clincher? I reported the identity theft. I'd let it slide once. Not again. When the cops showed up to question Kyle about the fake loan attempt, things got messy. A neighbor recorded it, raised voices, a slammed door, Kyle yelling something about needing a chance. Someone, likely Mom, shouted, "We told you not to make this worse!" That video hit the local community Facebook page, and just like that, the family that once judged others' scandals became the talk of the town. I didn't stick around to watch. I was busy settling into my new place. A one-bedroom above a bakery downtown. Quiet. Sunlight in the mornings. A kitchen free of old grudges. I paid the deposit with money I should have saved years ago. That night, I sat on the sofa. No TV, just my laptop and some delivery food, and watched the drama unfold from afar. They kept calling. Over and over. When I didn't pick up, Mom showed up at my job. She waited in the reception area, eyes puffy, clutching a container of my favorite stew like it could erase years of being used. I met her outside. She started to speak, but I cut her off. "I'm not coming back," I said, calm, firm, cold. "Josh," she whispered, "you're destroying this family." I laughed. "No," I said. "I just stopped holding it together." She recoiled. And for once, I felt no guilt. That was when it hit me. Not just the family dynamics, me. I finally saw them for who they were. Not helpless parents, not a struggling brother, but people who made choices, over and over. And now they faced the fallout. It's odd how quiet can feel louder than shouting. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waking to Kyle's music rattling the walls or Dad slamming drawers like a child in a suit. I wasn't dodging Mom's passive-aggressive sighs, bracing for the next emotional trap. Instead, I had calm. In the mornings, I brewed coffee without checking if someone drank the last of the creamer. I could leave my keys on the table without fear they'd vanish. I didn't have to defend every expense, every boundary, every moment. No one asked for cash. No one demanded answers. No one texted to manipulate. It felt strange at first. I kept waiting for the peace to break. Like I'd come home and find Kyle lounging on my couch, boots on the cushions, asking for another loan, but they never showed. The calls didn't stop right away, though. Mom left long voicemails, her voice trembling, laced with guilt. "Josh, this isn't you. You've always been our rock, the giver. Please don't let ego tear us apart." Dad sent one text. Just one. "Hope you're proud of yourself." I didn't reply. Eventually, the messages tapered off, then stopped. 3 weeks after I moved, a letter arrived, handwritten from Kyle. It was brief. "I know I messed up. I was just doing what they always allowed, but now it's all on me. Mom and Dad are falling apart. No one speaks to us anymore. You ruined everything. Hope it was worth it. No sorry, just blame. That said it all." I didn't write back. Instead, I focused on rebuilding what they'd tried to take. I enrolled in a coding program, something I'd delayed for years because we need help with the bills. I picked up freelance gigs at night, saving for the life I wanted, not the one they guilted me into funding. I made friends, real ones. People who didn't expect anything but authenticity. People who cared about how I was, not what I earned. I joined a local gym, rediscovered my love for lifting, for pushing myself on my terms, not carrying others who wouldn't budge. Therapy helped, too. Turns out, years of being the provider leaves scars you don't notice. My therapist called it parentification, when a kid is forced to act like an adult, financially and emotionally. She showed me I wasn't selfish. I was drained. Meanwhile, back at the old house, they unraveled. Mom had to get a job. She resented it. She'd spent years playing homemaker with someone else's money, mine. Dad drank more. Word is he got into a yelling match with a neighbor who asked about the Josh thing. Kyle, from what I heard, landed a job at a convenience store. It lasted a week. Then he blamed the boss, as usual. Extended family backed off. They'd seen too much, heard too much. The myth of our perfect little family didn't survive the truth, and I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't trying to fix it. I skipped Thanksgiving. I spent it with a friend's family, people who joked around the table instead of tiptoeing through tension. I brought dessert. They called me family and meant it. At Christmas, I got a card from my godmother. Inside was a brief note. "You deserved better, and you took it. I'm proud of you." I teared up reading it. Not from sadness, from being seen. You know what happens after you burn down your old life? Nothing. No big explosions, no last-second apologies, just silence. And it's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. For the first time in 30 years, my phone didn't ping with guilt-tripping texts or desperate pleas for cash. No urgent calls about Kyle's latest mess, or Dad's unpaid bills, or Mom sobbing because we don't feel like a family anymore. They expected me to crawl back. They always did. They thought I'd feel guilty. They thought I'd feel lost. But here's what really happened. I felt liberated. I could breathe. I could stand in my own space. One I paid for, decorated, maintained, and not worry someone would eat my food, borrow my car, or demand my future. I'd carried my family for so long I forgot what it felt like to stand tall, to live for myself, to not be needed. They used to call me the family's anchor. No one was the spark. And now that I'm gone, the fire they built around me has nowhere to go but back to them. 2 months after the fallout, I ran into Kyle. Of course, it was at a gas station. He was behind the counter, name tag askew, eyes tired. Still had that fake confidence, but it looked faded, like a cheap copy of his old self. "Josh," he said, grinned. "Didn't think you'd stick around." I just nodded. He leaned forward. "You know you really messed things up for them, right?" I blinked. "You mean when I stopped paying your debts?" He shrugged. "They're still dealing with the mess. You caused a lot of damage." I looked him in the eye. "You're confusing me fixing my life with ruining yours." Then I paid for my fuel and left him there, staring at the door like he couldn't believe the bank walked away. He still doesn't get it. None of them do. Because people like Kyle don't learn from consequences, not until the cash dries up and the attention fades. And I'm not waiting around to see that lesson land. Here's what no one tells you about escaping a toxic family. It's not the distance that stings. It's realizing you were never loved without strings. You were useful, valued for your silence, your sacrifice, your wallet. But love without respect isn't love, it's control. So when people ask, would you ever reconnect? I don't pause. No, because I finally love myself more than their approval. I used to chase their praise like it was air. Every good grade, every raise, every bill I paid, a desperate hope that maybe this time they'd see me. But they only saw what I could give, never who I was beneath it. Now I see me. A man who paid off 3 loans that weren't his. A man who stayed up late helping a brother who never tried. A man who kept the heat on in a house that always treated him like an outsider. And finally, a man who said, enough. I've built a new life from scratch. And this time, the foundation isn't guilt or duty. It's peace. It's choice. It's mine. I spend weekends exploring, reading, learning. I'm taking photography classes, something I delayed for years because there's always something more urgent to pay for. I'm seeing someone who doesn't need rescuing, who asks about my day, who doesn't call me selfish for having limits. Sometimes late at night, I'll lie in bed and think of the kid I used to be. The one who crept through his own home, who handed over his earnings like an offering, who believed if you just tried harder, they'd love you right. And I whisper to him, you escaped. You did it. You're free now. Let them whisper. Let them rewrite the narrative. Let them call me ungrateful, dramatic, heartless. Because here's the truth they'll never admit. Without me, their system fell apart. Without me lies, their lies collapsed. And I didn't even need to scream. I just walked away. And sometimes, the quietest rebellion is keeping the door shut.